Hey everyone, we are in the office today. We are working on some custom jewelry pieces as well as some pieces for our next upcoming live sale. We're at that phase of our lives where we're just kind of starting to get back to working our small business after taking several months off. To spend time as a family and to go through some healing with some health challenges. So we're excited to be back with you and to be doing a simple beaded elastic bracelet tutorial today. This is one of the most famous items or most popular items that I sell in my business. One of the reasons for that is because I can do it for a really reasonably low price point. One of the other reasons for that is because people love just really simple bracelets that they can throw on, that they can throw off, that, if they're feeling in a specific mood for a specific color, they can pull that one off. A lot of people like using specific stones for specific purposes, metaphysically or color psychology. Different colors represent different things and can impact the mind and the body in different ways. And so this is a really easy and simple, popular way to wear semi-precious gemstones. I have some of my gemstones back here. And I work almost entirely with semi-precious gemstones. I also do some wood beads on occasion, some hematite, and some metals. So this is a really fun way to do something really simply. It doesn't take a lot of time. There are some special techniques, and I'm going to teach those to you in this video. So let's go ahead and get started by setting up the workspace and getting all of our supplies together so we have them on hand and we are ready to go. All right, our workspace is clear. We are ready to go. I have my work lamp shining down and illuminating the space. I really love using a work lamp just because those hosts can be really, really tiny and it can be hard to do everything without a work lamp. So this is what's called a design board. Specifically a bracelet design board. These can be purchased at Michael's or pretty much any other craft store. This is my favorite brand. Bead Landing is the name. This has been spray painted white because I also use it for backdrops and photos, but for stock photos. So, but normally it's just gray. If you look at the back, it's gray. So normally these are gray and the writing is a lot more pronounced. But the average size of a bracelet is a 7-inch. So that means it's a 7-inch around the center of this line. Like you wouldn't lay it out and have it be 7 inches because depending on the thickness of the beads, it might actually be closer to 8 inches or 7 1/4. It just kind of depends on how thick the beads are. Standard bead sizes run from like 4 millimeter. Actually I do as small as 2 sometimes, and then up to 8 with the jumbo beads being 10 and above. So, but this you can do up to like a 10 millimeter size bead in here beautifully. So like I said, the most common size is a 7, but I would say most of my customers run between a 7 and a 7.5. I myself prefer a 7.5, and just for comfortability. I even have some customers that have a smaller wrist size, but they prefer like an 8 because they want it to be able to slide, far up their wrist. It just kind of depends on personal preference. So we're going to do a 7.5 today. I do sell little bead kits in my business. By the time you watch this video, I might not anymore, but for now I'm selling them, and they all come with enough beads for a 7.5 inch. So our other supplies or materials we need a collapsible eye beading needle. These do come in the kits that I sell to my clients. And then you need a good length of filament of beading string. I have tried so many brands, and Bead Nova crystal string is my absolute favorite. This is the 1 millimeter size. I use this on 99% of the things that I bead on elastic. I do have a much smaller elastic filament I'll use on micro strands, but this is what I use, and the reason for this is because it is incredibly strong and the knots hold very well. So like I said, I tried a lot of different brands, and that one is my favorite by far. So we have our needle, we have our board, our needle, our string. Of course, you can do this without a board. It's just really helpful if you're making bulk or you're making lots of them, or just to kind of play with the designs and see what it looks like in a circle. And then I do have my thread snips that I'm going to use on that. I have my glue. This is GS Hypo Cement. Sorry, the package is a little bit wrinkled up. And this, like I said, I've tried, just like I've tried a bunch of strings, I've tried a ton of glues. This by far is my favorite of all of the glues. The reason I love this one so much, other than the fact that it is not a cyanoacrylate, so it doesn't break down elastic like a super glue does. It's almost more like a rubber cement, but it dries really good and holds knots just perfectly, incredibly well. I've never had a knot come untied that I've solidified with this glue. But my other favorite thing about this is the precision applicator. So you can see that it has a precision tip applicator with a pin that goes down into it. And then when you take the lid off, the pin comes out and it goes back down in there. So like that, to really keep it sealed. And then that little tiny applicator is amazing for doing little tiny jewelry pieces. Okay, and then the last thing that I need is I need a knot cover. So these are 925 sterling silver knot cover beads, and I put one of these on every one of my pieces. I do actually have gold plated, like 14 karat gold plated sterling silver ones that I use on occasion. But today I'm just going to go ahead and do a silver. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and string our needle. So you want to make sure that you have twice the length, a little more than twice the length of the bracelet that you're going for. This is just like stitching if you were going to do some hand stitching on clothing, not cross stitching where we leave, one end down and we don't tie it off. No. This is just like conventional stitching. So we want to have these two ends. So this collapsible eye needle, these are very easy to open that eye back up. If you look at this, the eye is open at the moment. I just took a little pair of pliers, not even that little. Like I just used a pair of jewelry pliers and I grabbed the edge and I pulled it open. They're very easy to open the eyes back up, so you can keep using these over and over and over again. These you can also find, so the Bead Nova is on Amazon, and I did put a link below so that you can find that to purchase on Amazon very, very easily. And then the needles, you can buy them on Amazon. I bought these ones in person from Hobby Lobby. Once again, all jewelry stores are going to sell different styles of needles. I personally love the Hobby Lobby ones because you get way more for your dollar, but I feel like they get lost a lot easier than the sturdier ones. These are, however, this is one of their bigger sizes. They have finer sizes that are really good for small pieces. So a lot of different options. So we're going to go ahead and just tie this knot twice, and look at that. And once again, if you did buy a kit from me, you will have a needle and you will have the stringing elastic in your kit. So you'll just have to loop it through and tie the knot on the end. So before we get started to beading, we do want to stretch the elastic. So I'm just pulling it and just kind of holding it for just a few seconds, and then we're going to relax it. The reason for this is as elastic ages, it loses some of that elasticity and it relaxes. And then your bracelet, I'm sure this has happened to you before, this happened to me a million times before, your bracelet gets kind of just jiggly and sloppy. But if you pre-stretch it, it helps your elastic to last a little longer. But the cool thing is I'm teaching you how to do this today. So if your elastic gets sloppy and loose, guess what? You're going to know exactly how to restring bracelet, or if it eventually breaks, you know how to restring it now. So we're going to go ahead and focus right here on the 7.5 inch circle. I wanted to do a Kingman turquoise piece today. So if you are not familiar with Kingman turquoise, it comes from Cobalt Processing in Kingman, Arizona. One thing that's really cool about turquoise is it's typically named after the city that it's mined from, and with some variations in that. But I just wanted to do a really beautiful turquoise piece. So actually I'm going to combine a Kingman turquoise and then a California variety. Or no, this is a Nevada variety. So we're going to combine the two, but I just wanted a really beautiful Turquoise, probably a little bit closer to green than to blue. I just wanted to kind of use up some of the old pieces in my inventory that have been sitting around, and I haven't really had a good opportunity to use them yet, or just didn't want to part with them. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I buy beads and they're so incredibly gorgeous that I'm like, how do I sell these? How do I do this? I can't see myself selling these beads. And I know that sounds a little bit horrible, but it does happen on rare occasion. I'm going to double check this one. That is a turquoise, but I don't think I like it there. So we're going to set that guy aside. But, oh, that one. That one's a special one. That one arrived from the processor cracked. I don't know if you can see that. There's like a hairline crack in the bead. Just a hairline crack. So I had to contact them and say, hey, dude, I did not pay $5 a bead for one of them to be cracked. But they were great. They were wonderful. They went ahead and gave me a refund for the bead and a discount off of a future purchase. So they were great. They did the right thing. They made it right by me. But so, I mean, if you've ever noticed, turquoise always has this, not always, almost always, unless you buy really expensive turquoise, has like the brown and the stuff in it. That's just the matrix. That's the natural native stone. Turquoise is so soft that to get just straight up turquoise, it's incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive. See, here's a blue turquoise piece that has a lot less matrixing in it, but it still does have the matrixing. And I don't tend to buy the crazy, crazy expensive turquoise. I do on occasion, and that's why eventually you'll see a turquoise piece of mine, like a single bracelet that's like $35, and it's because it was $50 a strand to purchase. But it just kind of depends. Okay, so I went through and I just honestly decided to throw in more turquoise. I know I said I was going to do something different, but that's the beauty of designing, is you can change it up, you can mix it up. So these ones back here are what's called a high matrix scheme in turquoise. So they're just very gritty, very earthy, very natural. Whereas a lot of these up here are the Nevada turquoise that's more green and has less of the matrixing. If you can look at this big stone, see how beautiful green that is. It's absolutely gorgeous. So now that my layout is done, I'm going to go ahead and start stringing the stones. We're going to start from one side on the knot cover and just go all the way around. If I wanted to throw in any hematite accents, some beautiful silver accents or anything, this would be the time to do it. But I really don't love my pieces heavily accented. That's why this one's actually on sterling silver. This one is one of my favorite pieces, and all that it has on it to doll it up a little bit as well, sterling silver leaf. So I like my stuff really simple, but we're going to go ahead and bead these up. Now, there are a lot of different methods that you can use. Some people do prefer to lay up their beads in a row, and then they'll use a method where they take the needle and they feed them through the beads and turn the beads one at a time and get all the beads on the needle and then pull them onto the elastic. I have been doing this for a very long time. I've tried lots of different methods. I personally just love taking my time and just kind of feeling the vibes and doing them one at a time. And I just feel like it's just how I don't love it to have a manufactured feel. I don't love my beading to feel rushed. You know, that's kind of the beauty of feeling the intention of what it is that you're doing is, you know, one bead at a time. So we literally bead these one bead at a time. The only exception to that is my my micro pieces, because the micros are so massively incredibly small, and then you can't lay them out like this, so you're transferring them from one strand straight to another strand. So those will usually do 4 beads at a time, but not so much with my big beads. I'm not so concerned with being fast as I am with putting some love and intention into my piece. You guys. Whoa. We almost just had an infiltrator. That's blue apatite. That is not turquoise. Guys, there was a sneaky sneaker there. There was a sneaky sneaker. Almost tricked me. Wow. Good thing I happen to have another one of those turquoises, so we don't need to mess up our flow. It's a lesson to y'all to make sure that you don't have a camera between you and what you're beading. Look at that. See, it's coming along. We're just about halfway there, guys. Look at that. Now, depending on the size of the needle, every once in a while when you're beading these, you might it might get a little bit tough. If it does get a little bit tough, go ahead and just grab a pair of little pliers. These are specifically jewelry ones. They don't have the teeth on them, so they're not going to damage things. You can actually get these that have a soft coating on them to make sure that you don't damage your jewelry, but these are just fine. I have 3 pairs like this, and then I have a couple with the coating on it, but these are just fine. But yeah, you can just use this to pinch down that eye a little bit tighter, and that'll help the beads slide right over it. On occasion, it has happened to me, so I know it happens, and I try to avoid it, but on occasion, I have purchased beads with too small of eyes. So where the hole in the bead is much smaller than is typical. The hole in beads, typically, it kind of depends on where you're getting them from, run between 1 and 2 millimeters. But I have purchased beads before, even like 8 millimeter beads. Ordered them for a custom order, purchased them, paid to have them shipped, had them arrive, and the hole in the bead is way too small to bead with, and that has been disappointing. So a couple things you can do if that happens to you is you can buy smaller elastic, you can buy smaller needles. This is quite a big needle. I think this is like a 0.7 millimeter beetle. This is quite beefy. Most of the ones that they sell in like the 3-packs that are the Beadalon or other name brands are quite beefy. But you can find smaller ones. They sell, I've seen 0.3 millimeter, 0.5 millimeter. So they do sell finer ones. But in general, this size of needle is going to be just fine because most bead companies will not do that to you. They're not all that mean. It just happens. So I have run into some really interesting and fun dilemmas making jewelry over the last 3.5 years. That's how long it's been, guys. 3.5 years. Okay, so our beading is done. It looks gorgeous. One thing I failed to mention that you might want to know is when you're buying beads, they come on a strand. They don't just come loose. They don't come willy-nilly. And they typically come in 7.5 or 15-inch strands. So you can typically get 1 to 2 bracelets out of a strand. But you do want to make sure that the beads are, they line up beautifully on the strand. If you can. If you're ordering online, you really don't have any control over that. But every once in a while, you'll get like a bead that isn't perfectly center drilled and it's like wonky, off weird. Just keep an eye out for those. Oftentimes, I will inspect my strands and then I'll just use a Sharpie and mark that bead, and then that bead will get pitched when I'm working with it. I don't want it to end up on a piece because it will just look weird. But these are all beautifully center drilled beads. So, okay, so when I'm done, I like to just put it on my wrist, compare it for size, see how I like it. I can make an adjustment or two if I need to. So I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to see. I'm looking at it and I'm like, I want that a little bit bigger. And I kind of was suspicious when I laid it out that I'm going to want that a little bit bigger. So this is an easy fix. Let me show you guys what to do if you run into this scenario. I'm going to take the knot cover back on, off, not on. I'm gonna grab just a couple more beads. If you don't have a couple more beads of that exact bead on hand and you want it a little bit bigger, that's when it's a really good time to bring in some sort of an accent bead. Let me show you some of my hematite beads. If I wanted some hematite, I could bring in, I could bring in some really pretty faceted beads, or I even have like arrow-shaped hematite beads that are really cool. So there are some really fun things that you could do to bring in some pattern and some design. Like I said, I like to keep it really simple, really plain. So I'm actually just going to add one of the same beads onto each side. So I'm just going to pop this guy on here. I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to make sure it lines up all the way, because guess what? We're going to do tricky. So I'm going to actually cut this needle off. We're going to have to open this eye back up. This is a good education for y'all. We're getting some problem solving in here. Okay, so the eye of the needle is back open. I'm going to come over here to this side. I'm going to scoot these beads down just a scotch. Snip that off. Now, if we were working with tiny hold beads, we would be running into a situation right now, because we're now going to be pulling this over 4-ply of the elastic. But these are not tiny hold beads. These beads are just fine. So we're going to go ahead and pop this on here and pop it on. Or if we were using like a jumbo elastic, that could be a situation. But this 1mm size is like perfect. All right. Oh, hey, and we forgot to put this little silver dude back on. So we're going to pop our sterling silver knot cover on there. And now you guys are ready for the magic of the knot tying. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of stretch this again. We're going to get these in the middle. I want my beads in the middle, so I have my nice little tails on the end. It's going to make it easier. Now, the knot that I like to use, there are a few different knots that'll work, and a lot of people have opinions about this, but I like to use a surgeon's knot. So it's similar to a square knot, except for you loop the knot over an additional time. The key to this, once again, is to use these fingers to hold the beads back, and then to use your primary fingers to actually tie the knot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cross over once and cross over twice. So just crossing over that extra time. Now I'm going to pull this tight. You want to be careful to make sure that the knot doesn't slip over your knot cover bead. I've done that before, especially on the second time, and then you tie a knot around it and you can't put the knot under it, and you have to undo it and unpick it, and it's a pain in the butt. So we just want to make sure that the knot is beautifully on one side of the knot cover, which it is. Now, if I was just to tie the second one and put on top of this, it would be pretty loose. If you want it really loose, you can do that. But because once again, that elastic is going to relax as you're wearing it, you want to tie it fairly tight so that you can make sure that this doesn't get really loosey-goosey all of a sudden. That's another reason why I put a couple extra beads in and made it a little bit bigger, so that it really has lots of room to tie it tight. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to look at this. I'm going to take all these beads and I'm going to tie it. I'm going to pull them back so we can pull this a little bit tighter. So now the resistance you feel here is a lot stronger than when it was looser. Okay, so that is nice and tight now, and we're just going to do it one more time. Loop it over once, loop it over twice. Make sure that that knot doesn't slip on the other side of the bead, so it's really just doubled up right there. So we have it beautifully doubled right here. Now I don't stop there. I'm going to do it one more time just for security. I'm going to pull it nice and tight. Now, that's another reason why I love this elastic is I can pull this really, really tight and I don't worry about it breaking. One of the original elastics that I use, if I pulled it too tight, I could literally snap the elastic at that stage. And that was a big indicator for me that I needed to find something different. So I went to this. And I do use this in white and black. It just kind of depends on the piece, but most often white. So what we're going to do now to finish this off is we're going to pull the tails away because we have to trim off this extra elastic. So I'm going to pull the tails away, take my little thread snips. You could use scissors, you can use nail clippers. And I'm just going to trim right above the knot. So we do still have little tails, but that's okay. Okay. So before I slip that knot into that bead, now this is what's called a large hole. This is a large hole 4 millimeter large hole sterling silver bead. These are not super common. They're kind of hard to find. I will put a link below as to where I find these at so that you will know where to find these because these are hard to find. You cannot just order these on Amazon. You can if you just want them in like sterling silver plated, but if you want them in solid sterling, these are hard to find. So I'll put the link in the description. But now that I have this, I want to set that knot. If you don't set this knot, I honestly can't tell you how long it would last without setting the knot. You know why? Because I always set my knots, but I've never had somebody's knot a bracelet come apart by the knot coming undone. So my knots do not come undone because I always set them with glue. So I'm going to take my hypo cement right here. I'm just going to twist off the lid and I'm holding those beads back so they don't get all gluey. And I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on each side of that knot and then take that needle and put it back in. So you'll notice there are teeth marks because there are so many times when I am doing such complicated things with my fingers that I'll literally just stick the cap in my mouth and pull it off because I only have one hand. So we're getting real here. Now that that's gluey, I'm going to take this and I'm just going to pop it in there. You see how easy that went? If you are paranoid, you can tie 2 or 3 more surgeon knots and you can still like wiggle and jiggle the knot into the bead cover knot. You can still do that. So this one just had the 3. But there you go. And that's actually one of the really good things about the glue is the glue kind of lubricates the knot. If it's a really, really big knot, you've done it a lot of times because you're really nervous, it'll lubricate it to help you slide it in. So guys, there it is. There is our complete piece. Just pop that on the wrist and it fits beautifully and comfortably. And it has that beautiful little 925 sterling silver accent on the back end. And I did this a little bigger so it just kind of slides up and down and fits really loosely on my wrist, which is kind of lovely. All right, so thank you for checking out our tutorial. It's pretty easy breezy. The trickiest things you just need to remember are to stretch your elastic before you bead it, and then to use your littler fingers to kind of really pull and give some tension on the string as you're tying that surgeon knot and as you get that really, really well secured. It is an intimidating process, I know, to begin with. I was so scared to do it wrong to begin with, and then I was terrified to do it wrong and to sell a piece to somebody and then to disappoint them. And it just takes practice though. And the good thing is I've had 3.5 years of trial and error, so I can show you guys how to do it really simply and really easily, and hopefully you can be saved the pain and suffering and trial and error that I had to go through all that period of time. So pretty simple process. You're welcome to go ahead and comment if you have any questions or reach out to me. Some of you guys know how to do that. Otherwise, we'll see you again soon. We have a couple of upcoming tutorials with prayer malas, sterling silver bracelets, and a few other things that are kind of specialties of mine that I'm excited to get to share with you and show you how I make them. So have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks for checking out this tutorial. Go ahead and click subscribe to catch upcoming tutorials and videos from Hope Rising Rock Co. and, well, when life gives you lemons.